Dr. Wayne Dyer, the man that changed my life. Hi guys, my name is Christine Loveridge and I'm a dating, relationship and personal development coach. Today I'm making a more personal video about a man who I came across about 5 or 6 years ago, who really impacted my life in a really positive way. And that man is Dr. Wayne Dyer. Now, unfortunately, he died in 2015, so I never was able to go to one of his seminars, in person, or meet him in person, which is something I really wish I had have done. But unfortunately, I just didn't come across his work until after he had passed away. So I want to go into this video and talk about why this man and what he spoke about and his teachings and how that personally changed my life and made me a more positive thinker. So just to give you an example of how I used to be, actually there's a video that I made which was about me being a total loser and stuff like that. So you can go and watch that video here if you'd also like some more background on my own personal story. But basically, I was a very negative thinker. Like, my brain would always go to worst case scenario. I was also on SSRIs, antidepressants, and stuff like that, and I just had a very bad way of looking at the world. Okay, and this was something that I felt like I had always had. So even when I was younger, when I was really little, like a primary school age, which is like 5 to 11, I had a really negative outlook even then. Like I felt like I was always sad. That's how I kind of always felt. And that lasted all up until I started getting into this man's work. And basically, the way that he speaks is very practical. Like, it made a lot of sense what he said. So I'm going to get into the first thing that really impacted me when it came to Dr. Wayne Dyer and his teachings. So one of the sayings that he always said is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And basically what this means is that looking at a certain situation from a different point of view, in a more positive lens, shall we say. So, for example, let's say you ask someone out who you're really interested in and they reject you. Now, your brain could go to something like, oh, this is because I'm ugly, which was something that my brain used to go to when either I got rejected in the past. It would always go to, oh, it's because I'm ugly, right? But from watching and listening to Dr. Wayne Dyer and watching his seminars, that's one of the big game changers for me. Because he said, if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And basically, whenever that happened again, after listening to him a lot, I would look at it from a different lens, like, oh, perhaps we're just not compatible, or perhaps I'm just not her type. Things like that, instead of going straight to the worst case scenario. So he opened up my mind to the fact that I could look at a certain situation from different angles, right? And by doing so, it actually softens the blow. So if someone rejects you, you could come up with 10 possible reasons why this may have happened. And by doing so, it will make the situation less intense. Instead of going to that kind of very concrete, that very definitive way of looking at it, like, it's because I'm ugly. That's it, right? Because it's not just it. There could be many reasons as to why this happened. This saying, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, also really helped with my own struggles of the past. So there are many situations in my past that were just not very nice, especially some really cruel things that happened to me when I was a child. Certain people, when they look at that kind of situation that's happened to them, and this is a way that I looked at it as well, they see it as completely unjust, right? And rightfully so, because it was pretty bad, okay? But when I started learning that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change, I started looking at it from a different point of view. And that point of view is, would I still be the same person I am today if that never happened to me? Would I still be as strong? Would I be as resilient? Would I be as at peace with certain situations in my life? Because what usually happens, if you go through a lot of crap, right? To put it lightly, right? If you go through a lot of crap, that tends to make you a much more peaceful adult. Sometimes, not always. Sometimes people go the opposite direction and they let themselves become a victim for the rest of their lives, and they look at it always negatively and they never change their thoughts about it. But there are some people who have horrible things happen to them, and then because of that, they decide that they will then empower others, which is something that I personally am trying to do. I always talk about certain struggles that I go through. One of them was a situation in a romantic relationship in my early 20s. I'm 29 now, where I got cheated on. So I always talk about that. But because that happened to me, from that point, when it did happen, like, I didn't have a very positive way of looking at it at all. Okay. I felt victimized. I felt horrible about them. I didn't like them. I was really angry towards them. But because of that got me into learning about dating, which then progressed into learning about personal development. And because of that, it actually changed my life. So so that was a huge one, learning that and being able to see that some of the worst experiences that I've ever gone through has actually helped me so much and made me a much stronger person by far than I would have been if I hadn't have figured out from Dr. Wayne Dyer that I changed the way I looked at things and found an empowering meaning behind what happened to me, then I probably would have always been a victim, always doing stupid stuff, never taking care of myself, having a low self-image about myself, not caring about myself, But because those things happened to me, and because luckily I was guided by Dr. Wayne Dyer in his talks about, if you change the way you look at a situation, you can change that situation completely. Because it's all about the way we see things, the way we interpret things. As human beings, we are interpreters. Some people see past event that happened in their lives and they never get over it. They always remain the victim. And other people find meaning behind it and change the situation. So there's something I learned recently and about a guy called Viktor Frankl. Now, Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp. And what got him through was imagining that he was on stage talking to people about this situation, about why it should never happen again, and explaining what he learned in that concentration camp. He had a vision, and that vision kept him through and kept him going when other people around him were giving up and dying. Okay? And it was all because of this thing that he had in his head that he consciously chose to have a vision about. Like, he was thinking about it. He was like, I need to survive so I can tell other people about this, so I can teach the world about what happened to me and what happened to these other unfortunate people. He could have very easily, and very rightly so, seen the situation as the end and given up. He could have very well have gone, said that to himself and allowed that to be his experience, but he didn't. He found an empowering meaning, and therefore the way he saw the situation changed. He changed the way he looked at what was happening to him. And there is no way that I would have learnt that on my own. I owe all of my positive thinking, all of my current empowerment and personal development to Dr. Wayne Dyer. If I could only listen to one thing for the rest of my life, if someone said to me, look, this is the only thing you can listen to for the rest of your life, I would pick The Power of Intention by Dr. Wayne Dyer. I have the DVD of it, but you can also find it on YouTube if you want to watch it yourself, that particular lecture, because that was the game changer for me. That's what really started to get me into all this kind of personal development, especially when it comes to positive thinking. And that's the only thing that I would take with me if that was the only thing I could take, if I was on a desert island or something. So I highly recommend anything by Dr. Wayne Dyer, but particularly his lecture on The Power of Intention, which you can find here on YouTube. And in fact, I'll even link it down below in this video's description box so you can go and watch it for yourself. If you like this video, then please do leave a like, and please do subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thank you so much for watching, and I shall talk to you again very soon. Goodbye, guys.